Hello and welcome to special Facebook Live on re-engineering auto retail and its process. I'm joined by stalwarts of the industry. Let me introduce to you Mr. R.S. Kalsi, who is Executive Board Member at Maruti Suzuki India Limited, the country's largest passenger vehicle manufacturer. We also have Mr. Anuj Kathuria, who represents India's largest commercial vehicle manufacturer, Ashok Leyland. He is Chief Operating Officer. We also have industry veteran Mr. Rakesh Batra, who has been at one of the big fours for the longest time. He has an authority on Indian automotive industry. We have Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, a very well-known face. He is Vice President at Federation of Automobile Dealers Association, also partner at United Automobiles. I'm also joined by my dear friend Kranti Sambhav, who is a well-known journalist in automotive space. He is going to ask questions around consumers, how the car buyers look at automobile retail. So let me begin by inviting first Mr. Kalsi. How do you look at the automobile retailing changing? Because there are a lot of challenges that is coming up in terms of cost, competitiveness, in terms of pressure that the dealers are facing because of the high inventory, high real estate cost, high manpower cost. How do you see this changing with the disruption coming up?
Well, I would like to say that there are some major disruptions which are happening in the marketplace, particularly with respect to the current situation. But at the same time, let's see some of the trends which are happening over last couple of years as internet is spreading from, say, cities to small towns to villages. The focus on, say, making a decision on the digital platforms or after seeing the, this thing, say, websites, is becoming more and more prevalent. So if we see auto retail, it happens in three phases. The first phase is where the initiation of the customer is done through, say, various conventional media, maybe paper advertisements, word of mouth, or say outdoor hoardings and things like that. Then customer goes to the website. Now here the website of the OEM as well as website of the dealerships, where he does the product comparison, he sees the specifications and makes up his mind. And from there, then he moves to the showroom. So it's online to offline movement, and the time he's spending today at the showroom is much lesser than what he was doing earlier. So this is a trend which is happening. So footfalls on the retail showrooms are going down, but they are not in proportion to the, say, reduction in retails. Retails are fine for the same number of, say, footfalls which were happening earlier against the lower footfalls which are happening now.
So I'll take your initial comment. How do you see this changing for commercial vehicle industry, Mr. Kathuria?
Good afternoon. For commercial vehicles, as Mr. Kalsi said, for past cars, they are seeing a change that the footfall at the showrooms is coming down. If you actually see for commercial vehicles, actually walk-ins were anyways very limited. So the mode of sales is very different. But what is very important for commercial vehicles is the kind of service that you can provide. So most of our dealerships are the 3S setups. So while they focus on sales, but the at-site service, and that was very important. If you go back 10 years, or even say 6 years back, the warranty periods that we used to offer on the vehicles were 18 months or 24 months. So naturally, there was a parallel system that used to exist to service the vehicles beyond the warranty period. One is because the technology was simpler and it could be handled outside the authorized workshops. The other was there was a cost difference as well. But now, the warranty periods have gone up. The technology has become that much more sophisticated. So therefore, the inflow of vehicles that come to the dealerships for service has definitely gone up. So therefore, the profitability for the dealers service component has become a very important ingredient in the ensuring profitability. So we encourage our dealers to have more revenues coming out of service. Their fixed costs should be covered by the service revenues. Sales revenues and the profits accruing out of that should be like an icing on the cake. So that's how we have been approaching our network.
So service becomes very important when it comes to profitability, but how will it change with electrification? That we will come to that point later on. Vinkesh, your initial comment, how do you see your community emerging with the transition?
See, actually, like the discussion is going on, if you're talking about service, if you remember the last JDP CSI report, it very clearly said that customers are spending less in the authorized workshop. They actually gave the figure of around 10% going down from the service. At the dealerships, we are already going on in a very bad phase where the retails are going down. The service trend is also down. And obviously the customer psyche or the expectation from overall dealership, the product is changing very fast. A recent report also reported that now the customers are not being that price conscious. They are wanting the looks, the interior and exterior looks, and even the features and even technology used. And that has been very clear with the latest two launches. If you see, MG and Kia, both are the products which are working only on the looks. And if you check on Mahindra XUV 300, everything is selling on looks and the feature.
So cost is no more a hindrance. The main thing for the customer is that they are looking for better features, better quality product. Sir, we have seen a lot of transition happening, a lot of digitization is happening at the product level and also in the process level. How do you see the dealer's role? Is it going to reduce, or how do you see them transforming into a new business model?
Thank you, Nabeel. So I don't think the dealer is, going to get, eradicated. I think that's very, very, far time away. Even with all the changes that are happening and footfalls at showrooms, etc., are falling. Before I come to what the dealer needs to do, I think it's important to understand why we are here. Why is this situation today? I think there was some unprecedented network expansion that happened in the last 4-5 years with the anticipation that the market is going to grow. But unfortunately, the market did not grow, in line with that network expansion by most of the brands. As a result, the throughput through the existing network or through the existing dealers went down substantially, right, because of the expansion, number one. Number two, the consumer changed, so footfalls at the dealers went down, and this resulted in a lot of, underutilized capacity in the retail network that has caused a lot of pressure on automotive dealers today. I think, in terms of what dealers need to do, they need to shift the focus from the showroom to the customer. I think customers are demanding more support, whether it be B2B or B2C, in the buying life cycle. That you bring the test drive car to them. We're hearing examples where you can take a VR to their house, they can examine the vehicle over there. So I think we have to move towards where the customer is and what she is looking for, whether it be in B2C or B2B context. And I think that's the big shift that needs to happen from a retail perspective.
So those who have just joined in, you're watching a special Facebook Live on re-engineering Indian automobile retailing. We have seen a lot of shift happening. You are going to get answers from the experts. You can post your questions in the comment section. I would like to bring you here, Kranti. How do you assess the situation for the customer or car buyer? How do they want to see their dealership evolving in the future?
That's an interesting thing what Sir said, Nabeel, because if you look at future, even the footfall that is going down, but at the same time, because of technology, the number of people who are involved in dealership that might go down, that has to go down, but customers are being more demanding. How do you balance that out? So this is what I wanted to ask you also, sir, because when you look at technology, the usage of for example VR, AR, those kind of technologies, when you use it, but that will again help the customers to experience the vehicles in a better manner. But they are if you reduce the number of dealership employees or whatever, that how will you balance that? How do you satisfy the customer?
Kranti, I think a very good point brought up by you. So taking it from where I left, customer is now, taking his decision on the website, and then he visits the showroom for his, say, offline experience at the showroom, and he's spending much lesser time at the showroom now. So during that, first moment of truth at the showroom, the dealership staff, they have to be prepared, they have to be highly technology savvy, and there should not be any moment where a customer faces any sort of inconvenience. So they have to be highly efficient, highly customer friendly, and because this is where he looks forward to a great experience as well while he is purchasing, and he spends a fraction of time in the showroom compared to what he was doing earlier. So from that point of view, upgrading the dealerships in terms of the experience and also the manpower to handle this kind of a customer is very important. The next point is having a 360-degree view of the customer, because at the point of sale, it's not just end of the game, it is just the beginning of the relationship. From there, dealership has to take it forward to what sort of mobility related requirements of the customers are there, and how they can play a helping role in that direction. That is one thing. Now, second thing is, instead of selling the car, they have to think of providing the mobility solution to the customer. It may be that some of the dealerships may be playing a mobility company role, where they may talk about maybe leasing the vehicle, they may talk about subscription model, or they may talk about, say, self-drive model for the customers. So these are the things which will become very important as we talk about, say, future of retailing from the dealer showrooms.
We have also seen an emergence of new, kind of trend, that where there's a startup that is asking the common users to go and provide cars to prospective buyers to have that experience. How do you think these kind of trend emerging?
Well, certainly, what is happening is the future is about shared mobility. And a customer, instead of, say, seeing 4 or 5, say, multiple models parked outside his house, may switch over to a situation where a car is being used by multiple customers, rather than multiple cars being with a particular customer. So this is one trend which would cause a big disruption. Customers still would like to have one car with him, but when it comes to experiencing, say, other models, or taking care of higher level of, say, mobility related needs, then he might say mobility related, model where he will be going in for shared mobility.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, sir, because yesterday only we saw one manufacturer, opening their first non-automobile or non-car dealership. And how do you see Indian customers, taking that trend?
So I think, as Mr. Kalsi said, customer needs are changing in terms of ownership towards more, rental or shared or subscription-based models. So I think dealers have to, understand this change, and I think a key part of bringing about that change is also going to depend on having sales and service staff that better understand the customer. I think their ability to understand a customer's needs and then offer him or her the right solution is going to become critical for the dealer's future success. But clearly, I think a lot of car ownership is going to move away from 2-3 cars, particularly in urban areas, to a single car, and then using these other models, as Mr. Kalsi was saying. On the B2B side, I think dealers have to start looking at what other value-added services, as in B2C also. They have to look at value-added services that they could provide, and we are hearing of some dealers providing, for instance, fleet management services to the smaller single truck owners and or smaller fleets less than 5. So they have to look at ways to grow their revenue streams. And it's only going to come from addressing a broader set of customer needs, as opposed to selling and servicing a car and insuring a car, which was the more traditional model.
So before Nabeel takes over, just one question to you, sir, because we have heard what everyone veterans are saying. As a dealership, both 4-wheeler, 2-wheeler, how are you taking this change, and how are you taking it forward?
See, it's not an easy change. A lot of things are changing, and the customer's expectation from dealer is now changed. For the past, if you talk of what 10 years before was happening, once he was coming in, he was even happy sitting in a sofa and a glass of water. But today, even with a coffee day, cappuccino is not satisfied. He wants something more. And slowly and steadily, if you see how the CII or the infrastructure have changed, a dealership practically has lost the basic dealership hygiene. So we are now more like a 5-star or a mall type of a culture where a customer comes in with all black interiors and a coffee shop in it, and we are trying to please him anyhow. But on the whole, still the end result is the convenience what he needs for his product, the service what he expects from us, or not coming to workshops a lot of time. So if he buys a vehicle and if he is able to come only once in a year, he'll be happy without a cappuccino at my dealership. But the problem is slowly and steadily, with all the improvement we have had in quality, still there are a lot of customers who have to come thrice or 4 times in a year. So going further, as a dealership, as a company, we all have to come together and give a good and easy convenience, a comfort to the customer, where once he buys a vehicle, he's set for the whatever time, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever time he wants to buy a vehicle, and he's not disturbed by regular, like Nabeel said in our discussion, different recalls or different points of concerns where he has to come back to the dealership. Obviously, we'll have to all involve ourselves. Infrastructure, obviously, it's a big issue. We have invested a lot in that. Going forward, we'll have to shift to some frugal system, because now we are shifting to more digital sales. And like Mr. Kalsi said, the customer's time at the dealership is very limited. Before, he used to come 5 or 6 times and all put together 8 to 10 hours. Today, he comes only for a delivery, which is, we try it as half an hour or max an hour if he comes and get his vehicle accessorized in front of him. So that is reducing. So the biggest investment or the cost for our dealership is on the rental front or the infrastructure one. If we all coherently work towards a frugal infrastructure, work on the digital media more, where the customer is also happy. He wants the convenience of sitting at home and doing everything, even the finance paper. Like if you check on a lot of banks, HDFC, they are giving loans on a click. The customer doesn't have to go for all the paper signing. If we do off with all those tedious paperwork, even at the dealership, delivery forms, OTF forms, there are a lot of papers we get it signed by the customers because of the government norms and our OEM's regulations. So if we start working on the convenience front, I feel it will help the customer and in turn the dealerships also.
So, of course, there are challenges, and I think these challenges are specific to categories and segments also. We'll also talk about how multimodal or multi-brand solution can be provided in retailing and services space. But before that, if you have any questions, our experts are available to take them all. Mr. Kathuria, I want to understand how digitization, or we are talking about AR, VR, these kind of technology is going to disrupt the commercial vehicle retailing, because that segment is completely different from passenger vehicle. Your customers are different, their requirement and expectations are different. How do you see these technology transcended into commercial vehicle space?
Thank you, Nabeel. One thing which I would like to say is that when we come to commercial vehicles, it's not more about AR or VR, but digital definitely plays a very important role. Let me give you a few examples. Today, most of our customers, especially the fleet owners, would like to have all their vehicles connected. When I say connected, I don't mean vehicle-to-vehicle connectivity alone, vehicle to back office, vehicle to service center. So there are different forms of connectivity that the people are looking for. So we were the first ones in the country to provide hardware and a software support for all vehicles to get connected. The other thing which is very important for commercial vehicles is the uptime. So how to guarantee a superior uptime when the vehicles are operating across the country? So we provided a brand agnostic platform, so a service platform called Service Mandi. which is again completely on digital. So this is being appreciated by our customers. The number of transactions that we have every month is mind-boggling. It is growing month after month. The gross transaction value that we are... So this has enabled the mechanics to be approachable by the customers. Not only the customers who are sitting in the back offices, the fleet managers, but also the drivers can do it directly. Similarly, on parts availability, like we are all going in for online shopping. Today, why should you have to reach out to a retailer to go and pick up a part? And many times you end up picking up the wrong part because of so many variants we have. So here you can order your parts online. So that is another platform that we have used. Similarly, we are also trying to now come to a level where flashing of the data set can be done over the air. So that's the next level of using the digital platform. Trying to see that how the vehicles need not always come to the workshop to get fixed or to get attended to. So digital will play a very important role. Now in commercial vehicles, even the government is trying to, even the toll gates have all now got FASTag. So everything is now on the move. And this is not going to end here. This is just the beginning. In fact, going forward, one thing which we are seeing is, I would say that it is similar to, I would call it the Uberization of commercial vehicle usage. We initially saw that load aggregation was the first step in improving the productivity or the asset utilization. Today we are actually going to go away from load aggregation, but we are trying to say how we can use the fleet on a shared basis. How can the same fleet be used by different users, like in a Uber or a Ola, the same car is being used by several passengers. So today that shift, we are just, that's in a very nascent stage, but it is going to happen in due course of time. So anything which is, when it comes to shared mobility, connectivity, communication on a digital platform becomes that much more important, because that is where the differentiation happens. Sharing of information and fast sharing means, instant sharing of information is required. So this has to be enabled by use of the digital platform. And I feel that there are quite a few solutions that are already available in the market, but there are many more opportunities, and in the near future we will see that irrespective of whether it is an electric vehicle or a fossil fuel vehicle, shared mobility will definitely be something which will have a greater adaptability in the Indian context ahead of maybe even some other countries.
Thank you, Mr. Kathuria. Mr. Kalsi, we see a lot of dealers. We talk to them. They put all the blame on OEMs. They say this is not being allowed, that is not being allowed. How much do you see that OEM is really responsible for their lack of profitability or their efficiency management? Do you think in future, they also talk about if multimodal retailing can be allowed in India, do you think it is only a dream or it can come true?
Well, I would like to say that we have been growing at a the same pace of double-digit growth continuously for 5 years, and keeping the say future demand, seeing a historical the same movement of the trend, the network expansion was happening, and I don't see anything wrong, because network cannot be expanded overnight when the demand picks up. So current phase, I would say, is a temporary phase. The auto dealerships, if these are managed properly in terms of the inventories, in terms of the finances, have been making profits. We are now having some of the dealerships that are 35-year-old. So that is one part of it. Second part is when you are talking about, say, multiple OEM dealerships. So I don't think so in future, there should be any problem on that front. End of the day, a dealership has to take a call, how they want to expand their business. At the same time, the focus on the changing trends is very important. For example, capturing the lifetime value from the customer by providing him various other related mobility services is very important, where customers should focus on a win-win kind of a partnership with the dealerships, and dealerships should focus on working on each and every revenue stream that comes with the sale of a car. As I mentioned, that it is the beginning of the relationship. A 360-degree view of the customer is very important. So, and now we are talking about connected cars, and we have introduced Suzuki Connect on our cars, where remote diagnostics in case of certain problems is possible. So with that kind of a thing happening, the dealerships, they would be like 24/7 kind of a say service network, and they have to provide that facility to the customer at any time of the day, so that he does not get immobilized because of any problem in the cars. So things would be this thing moving in a very interesting way.
So I'll take one question from our viewer. This is Karan Thakur. He asked, why do OEM demand big showrooms in metro cities from dealerships? Because that is a major concern because of the real estate cost.
Well, I talked about customer experience, that we have to provide him experience, we have to provide him various choices. So think of a company which has say 12 or 13 models, and all those models have to be displayed so that customer can have a touch and feel experience at the dealership when he comes there. But certainly I agree that as we move forward, customer spends less and less time in the showroom, and his decision happens at the back end on the website. So there is a possibility of reducing the sizes of the big showrooms, and smaller, more lean and compact showrooms may be a thing of future.
Another question coming in for you, Mr. Kathuria. Before I go to consumer questions to my friend Kranti, if we order online parts, numbers, variants, product due to each quarter, he is saying there is some kind. Is it that it is improved every quarter, the parts used in after sales, or what it is?
I understand the question, but if you order parts on our site, which is the Leycart, and if you are going to record your vehicle identification number, it will trace it back to the model and the year in which it was manufactured, and it will give the part number pertaining to that variant. So I understand that if this is not there, there are certain improvements that are done on the products, and those can result in maybe getting the wrong part. But on our platform, we have ensured that once you are putting the vehicle identification number, which is unique anyways, there is no chance of getting the wrong part.
Thank you, Mr. Kathuria. I have my question to you, Mr. Batra. We have seen a lot of trend towards, downsizing the dealership. Do you see further it becoming the norm in India?
Well, I think there is a case, and as Mr. Kalsi also said, for re-looking at the showroom footprint. With costs going up, and also with other formats being now available, and the consumer moving less and less towards the showroom, I think there is a case for different formats and smaller footprints for the showroom. Also the whole business particularly in the urban areas is becoming much more complex because of the whole regulatory, environmental, number of other factors. I mean, a showroom or a workshop is now more like a factory than, an automotive retail dealership. So, that is also causing some push towards, outside areas, as we were talking, even in the hub and spoke model. A lot of the warehouses have moved outside the city. Some of that may need to be re-looked at, particularly from a workshop perspective, and how you can provide more doorstep services for, routine maintenance. And have the vehicles or the consumers coming to the workshop only when there is a a repair job, or a non-traditional, or a routine maintenance type of activity. So I think there's definitely a case for that.
One last question to you before I go to Kranti. Sorry, I'm making way. What are the key three pressures that you dealerships face from OEMs that you'd like OEMs or Kalsi-san or Mr. Kathuria to ease on?
See, actually, if the retails are moving on fine, there is no pressure because we all are working towards one goal. One, or you can say two, three goals. One is customer satisfaction. The second is having as many vehicle on the road and as achieving whatever the targets are or whatever. So I feel there is nothing like it where we can say that we are at loggerheads. But yes, once the retails are not as good as in the market what we expect, and then all our preparation for that expectation is huge. Like what happened for the past 1 year, we increased the infrastructure, we increased the manpower by 10 to 20%, expecting there'll be growth, like it was going on CAGR, we had a very good growth. So that is the time where the problem comes, and that is where we dealers, as a process, because we have a good relationship with them, we go back to them for our support system, how to be viable and all. So not specific to any one OEM, but there are a lot of OEMs who support us. And I'm happy to say that I am a dealer of Mahindra, and Mahindra has supported my dealership well. But not all the OEMs are that forthcoming and to support us. So as our association, we request all OEMs to be forthcoming, seeing the market.
Thank you so much for your questions. Keep posting. We will take them in the next segment, but we'll bring in my friend Kranti to ask consumer-centric questions.
Thanks, Nabeel. Just what the question which you asked, Mr. Batra, similar follow-up question as far as future of dealership is concerned. I mean, maybe that's hypothetical right now because we have heard lots of talk about electric vehicles. But do you think that that will require different kind of preparation as far as EVs are concerned? They will require different kind of preparations on dealership level.
Well, as far as sales points are concerned, I think I don't expect much change on that side. At the same time, we are talking about charging infrastructure, so there we have to see whether there can be some partnership models where dealerships can also come forward for providing the charging points. Then third point, which is of a major concern, is that of service. The workshops. Now, since the number of moving parts goes down drastically in case of electric vehicles, they become almost maintenance free. So that certainly would reduce the opportunities for the dealers to have those revenue streams at the workshop level. Nevertheless, we are talking about say 30% penetration by 2030. That would mean that there would still be a huge chunk of IC engine vehicle population, and maybe for next 2 decades or so, I don't foresee that there should be any disruption in terms of the workshop load of the dealers on the conventional vehicles.
So I have another question from our viewer. This is Shahars Damani, who is CEO of FADA. He asks, why are OEMs not releasing monthly retail registration instead of just giving wholesales? Because it has been buzzing around for quite some time. Your answer?
Well, we'll be very happy to do that, but the figures have to be authentic. Now, what we are waiting for is, say, digitization of all our RTOs, so that those RTOs, they release the authentic figures, and then there's like no resistance from our side in terms of sharing those figures, but figures have to be authentic and reliable.
So I think we have already covered 75 to 80% of the RTOs, so it's no time we will be able to release retail numbers from the OEMs. What's your take on this?
No, my views are exactly the same, and I agree with what Vinkesh was also saying, that the final intent, whether it's an OEM or a dealer, is to put the vehicle on road. Because when an asset is going on road, then only it becomes productive. So that is when the cycle gets completed. So we are also intending, we do not just want to push the vehicle to the dealership, because we know that in today's world, the cost of carrying the asset is huge and it doesn't help anybody. So there has been a legacy of calculating market share on the offtake numbers. So we are trying our best, and even in forums like SIAM, this is being discussed as to how can we move on to reporting the retail numbers. But as rightly Mr. Kalsi said, that the infrastructure wise we are still having a few gaps. Maybe in the next few months to a year we should be able to come out of it. And I think so everybody in the industry is for reporting retail sales, and that should be the metric that should be governing all of us.
Yeah, you have a question?
Internationally, everybody is working on retail data market share. And as a dealer, I'm not talking as an association person, but as a dealer, I'm regularly being bugged by what is your city market share and what products which you. Can we think of shifting till the time RTOs are online? Can we shift on what the retail figure as per DMS is? Because every dealer works on a OEM DMS. So the data with your DMS is the actual retail because the warranty starts for that. So can we think till that time comes that all the OEMs, as in SIAM joined, give a sheet where they can say even how the retail figures are?
This will have to be a collective decision by all the OEMs. You cannot expect that, okay, one OEM is talking about retail figure, other OEM is talking about wholesale figure. So in fact, we are looking forward to the day when, all this data will be available to us through RTOs for everyone. And that would be the real, this thing, say, market share. End of the day, what goes to the customer is the real sale. The primary sale is just pushing the metal, and I fully empathize with you on that front.
So what we heard that one new company has started doing this. But before I go to my question or Kranti's question, I'll take another question from the viewer. This is Sapna Sharma. She asks, what the experts think about the current slowdown. Will FY20 be same as FY19? What is the growth they expect for the next, considering scrappage policies on the offing? And you have just reported a positive sales about 4.5% growth.
Well, I would like to say that the current results of October should be seen in isolation, in the sense that all the festival days were there. We had Navratras, Dasara, Diwali, everything was clubbed together. That was one thing. Second thing, certain speculation about GST changes on the vehicles had been put to rest by the government. So all the pent-up demand also, this thing came forward, surfaced on that account. And moving forward, we'll have to keep a close watch. I would say that we have to move forward with a cautious optimism. Monsoon has been good, and the economic policies of the government are in place, and I don't foresee any disruption in those policies. So we have to look at the this thing, say, positive side of it moving forward.
For the commercial vehicles, actually this year has been very different from, it has panned out very differently as we had initially thought of. And if you compare with FY19, actually today we are down by almost 40%. So therefore there is no way that in the remaining 5 months we'll be able to catch up. One thing which we need to keep in mind, that there have been certain structural changes, especially in the long haul segment of the heavy vehicles, which actually has increased the capacity of vehicles on road overnight, which happened in July of 2018. So that will take its own time to get absorbed into the system, that capacity. We were expecting that, okay, before BS6 comes in April 2020, we should have some pre-buy. But again, that is not to be seen. Government has given certain incentives. Depreciation rates have been improved for this year. Liquidity in the market, because in commercial vehicles finance plays a major role. So that has been better. Some of the NBFCs are now coming forward, but everybody is very cautious. So monsoons have been good. That's a good thing. Maybe if the infra projects which have been announced by the government, they get mobilized, we'll see some demand coming in from there. But again, I'm not very overly optimistic. The good thing is that even the pipeline inventories, both at the OEM end and the dealers end, have now come to manageable levels. So that's good news. So the wheels have started churning in the right direction. But again, you will not see a major growth or anything over last year. It will definitely be subdued as compared to last year. We are also entering into a very important, era of BS6, because BS4 era lasted only 3 years. So many of the OEMs who had invested huge sums of money, capex, in BS4, before that could have been recovered. We were again given the responsibility of getting the BS6 technology ready, and that has also cost a lot of investment, not only at the OEM end but also at the tier 1 suppliers. So profitability is also kind of stretched. Margins are squeezed. So things are definitely very challenging. But we have seen these cycles in the industry. If you take the last 30 years, this must be the 8th cycle. So we are very hopeful that, and in every cycle we have seen that we bounce back stronger. So we are hopeful that maybe this slowdown phase that is there, maybe when we come back, I don't know whether it will take another 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. That's something that we'll have to wait and watch. But whenever it happens, I'm sure that we will again, have the same upbeat sentiment. And definitely when we have such discussions in a slowdown, our reactions are also not very optimistic. But I'm sure we'll come out of it.
Thank you so much. We are all optimistic. Mr. Batra, what is your view on this? Do you think we are going to have a sustainable growth anytime soon?
I'm sure we will have growth. After all, India is still the fastest growing economy in the world, even though our growth rate has slowed down. And I think a lot of the future global growth is expected to come out of India. And we have a responsive, government in terms of policies and trying to address the current situation. Of course, we all wish it would have been faster, but a number of steps have been taken, starting from the budget and post the budget in the last few months. So definitely, there's a big market in India still, which is unexploited. A vehicle, a car, a two-wheeler, or whatever mobility solution customers need is still very aspirational, and we have a large emerging middle class. So there is definitely a lot of sustainable growth opportunities in the future. But I think we just have to ride through this difficult time that we have with overcapacity in manufacturing capacity, with overcapacity in retail capacity, and also some of the other structural changes that are taking place. But I think starting FY21 next year, we should get back into the growth cycle, provided the economy comes back to a 6.5% plus growth rate, which I expect will happen by first quarter of next year, given some time for all these policy changes to take effect.
So before I hand over to Kranti, one last question. There is a very interesting question comes. What should be the ideal inventories at the dealership? I have dealer, I have OEM. So who is going to take first?
See, it's very important to optimize the inventories at the dealership from the viewpoint that the customer, when he comes forward, does not go disappointed. And in India, a lot of sales happening during the festival seasons, during the auspicious times, which are very difficult to forecast. So if you ask me, ideally, we should keep an inventory of this thing close to 21 days to 4 weeks, so that whosoever customers come forward, they are able to get the delivery of the vehicles this thing fast. Now, why this question is coming up is that for this purpose, we take normally say 3 months running average, that this has been the say retail in last 3 months. So accordingly, it becomes say what is the number in terms of say 4 weeks inventory or 3 weeks inventory. But suddenly there was a slump in the sales went down drastically. However, inventories in absolute numbers, they remained more or less same or slightly increased. So from say 4 weeks, they reached up to 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So though the absolute numbers, there was not much of a difference. But since we had moved out from a very, very buoyant year into a time where the sales were dropping, so inventories had become dangerously high, and certainly it posed a lot of burden, financial burden on the dealers. Now I can share with you that we have been able to correct the inventories in last say couple of months, and ideally with that kind of inventory, there should be a very good say synchronization between the retails and the wholesales, irrespective of the absolute numbers.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I think we need to look at more of a pull-based model as far as inventory is concerned in the industry, moving away from this push-based model. So yes, there are a lot of variants. I know there's a lot of complexity in the number of different models and variants, particularly when you add in different fuel types, etc. And that's only going to grow in future. It's not going to come down. However, there are very staple models that always sell a certain volume every month in a variant, and I think we can look at more of a replenishment-based pull model where as cars are being retailed, they are being replenished. Anyway, many of you manufacturers are moving yourselves to a hub and spoke model with regional warehouses. So the lead time to deliver from a regional warehouse to the dealership has reduced significantly. And I think if we just focus on the 80% that are fast moving and have more definitive demand accuracy or demand forecast accuracy, we could easily move those to a pull based model. And the rest can still follow a push-based model, but I think that should help rationalize inventory down to 2 weeks or less within the networks.
While what Mr. Batra was saying is again a pull-based model from a push-based would help improve the efficiencies. But fundamentally, it will still mean that you either, somebody ends up carrying those inventories. Either it is the tier 1 supplier or the OEM or the dealer. Actually, if you were to think slightly differently and say that does the customer who comes to buy the vehicle, his decision is not overnight. He actually, if suppose we understand this and we reason out with the customer that we are actually going to pass on the cost to you finally. Because all this cost that is there in the system is finally borne by the customer. And if options are given that, Mr. Customer, if you come and book your vehicle and you're ready to wait for the 3 to 4 weeks and you get into the made to order system rather than build to stock system, help the OEMs come out of it. And therefore, I will be able to give you, pass on a percentage of the benefit to you. I think so the customer is rational enough, logical enough to understand this. So this is something which has been done with in some countries I am aware of. In fact, India, being a larger country with more complex customer behavior, yes. So if we can go to made to order, it will actually help us cut down lot of muda in the system. And finally, the customer stands to benefit out of it.
So obviously, Mr. Kalsi has answered me well. What we as an association have always been said that 21 days inventory is the best inventory. A very, very viable, efficient inventory a dealership should have. So obviously, what we say is around 10 to 15 days physical and 5 to 7 days the transit time what we take. And as a dealership, obviously, one of my biggest cost is interest. So if we work on anything from 15 to 21 days, a dealership is viable. And it's right, if we are shifting to made to order models, or even if we say that these are runner models which we keep in stock, and then there are some of the models where you can order this and it will take 3 to 4 weeks to come over. That would be a very good combination to go further to improve things.
So one thing I wanted to discuss, because we have been discussing cars and commercial vehicles as well, but you are also a two-wheeler dealer. How is that future looking for you?
Regarding the inventory, so actually if you talk of two-wheelers, the numbers are huge, and a two-wheeler can be easily managed by a 15 days inventory, but the problem is different on the ground, because two-wheeler today it may have improved this month, but it's regularly been 55 to 60 days inventory because of the last 1 year degrowth, because the numbers are huge and there are not a lot of variants. So if you talk of a product, they'll have 3 or 4 color and 1 model. So the complexity of an passenger vehicle as compared to two-wheeler is pretty less, and it's still manageable if provided, like I said, if we shift on the market share based on actual retail, even if not on the registration, even if the DMS retail what OEMs have, it will help us a lot in having the correct days of inventory at the dealership.
Also want to ask you what Mr. Kathuria said. If we manage to convince the customers to wait for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then you'll get a better deal, which makes sense. But we also see that it is very these customers are very temperamental as well. I remember recently I had one query from a viewer. I was traveling, so I couldn't answer. In 3 days, he changed his decision. He changed his car. He bought it also. I told him that this is what you should buy, but he bought it and said, no, thank you very much. I bought something else. So they are very temperamental. They are very immediate kind of buyers. How do you see that kind of mentality coming? As far as Indian customers are concerned?
See, actually, if you talk of these type of customers who don't wait, these are the huge mass customers. And they normally buy what normal vehicles are being sold. So if I talk of a vehicle inventory of 100, you will find 20, 30 products which a specific customer wants, a specific variant with some features specific. And he can wait for that because he has demanded something different. So what normally happens with us dealers, even if we have more than 21 days inventory, you will find more of whites and silvers with us in the passenger vehicle. So if a customer walks in and orders a orange or a violet blue or some different colors which companies launch for the launching time because it looks good for the media, he has to wait for a month at least, because the process is that we punch in an order, the OEM builds it in around 5 to 7 days, and again another 8 to 10 days for the transportation, and then PDI and delivery. So there are customers who are still waiting, but obviously the mass customers who go as per the general view, those products are always there. So like if we can improve the inventory of the fast moving products, automatically our inventory days goes down. So it has to be a common coherent decision that obviously the stock amount has to go down, the inventory has to be as please.
Yeah, I would say also that the dealers have an important role in improving their entire forecasting, right? They are the closest to the customer. Your read of the market is much better than a territory manager or a regional manager or somebody at headquarters, right? So and what I've seen in my experience is the whole forecasting at the dealership is not treated with the level of importance that it should be in terms of the person who's doing it, the skills, the tool sets. And here I want to throw an idea out that maybe the dealers and OEMs can work together to have some kind of a shared services model around this. There is a lot of technology available today. You can easily look at what has been retailed during the month. You have the data, as you rightly said, DMS also has the data, and you can jointly work out what should be the forecast for next month, which can be pushed to you by the OEM to each dealer. And then the dealers can review it and tweak it, right, in terms of variants or in terms of colors. But inherently, demand at the point of consumption doesn't change that much, right? It's only the forecast accuracy or inaccuracy and the bullwhip effect that causes these volatility in inventories. So I think I understand that availability of skilled people with ability to forecast using tools, etc., may not be available at each dealer. So you can look at some kind of a cluster-based model where you can invest in technology, invest in better skilled people to do these forecasts. And the cost, in fact, I think will be lower for dealers than having everybody having your own forecasting, and that can be spread across both parts and vehicles. I think in parts, I find a lot of OEMs doing a much better job in terms of replenishing to consumption.
I think that was a very good point raised. You want to add?
I just wanted to add to what Mr. Batra was saying that in fact we have implemented something which is very similar to what you just said. We call it PRISM. PRISM stands for Practical Improvements in Sales and Marketing. This was put into place some 5 years back. What we have experienced is that, as you rightly said, some of the dealers who took it more seriously than the others, their ability to forecast was far superior. And now we have encouraged the dealers, we have actually incentivized them on their ability to forecast. So this is actually helping us to get better forecasts. And I'm sure that if we follow the robustness of the sales funnel and we look at the sales funnel in the right way, and we, some of the dealers are still working on those, the sales executives have their own diaries and they record all the information on the diaries, and there is some, they feel sometimes threatened in sharing that data. because there is a chance of it going out into the system and then losing the deal. So we have to make it more robust. So we are encouraging most of our dealers to practice the sale and update the sales, everything into the sales funnel. What is not being done today and should be done is that use the sales funnel. That courage is required by the system, that we will use the sales funnel as the sacrosanct source of data. Once we start doing that, and then we tell the dealers that sorry, it was not in the sales funnel, so therefore even if it means that there is a loss of sale, it will take some that short-term beating, but that courage is still missing in the system. So I feel that once we can get to that, it will definitely, for a larger cause, we'll have to go through that.
So last comment from you, sir, especially focus on infrastructure. How infrastructure should be changed?
First of all, I would like to add one more point to this, inventory at the dealership. See, one of the solutions can be a technology-enabled solution which we introduce in spare parts. Suppose there are multiple dealers in a particular city, so a sort of virtual warehouse or a virtual stockyard can be created, where if a customer is asking for a specific model, specific color, specific variant from a particular dealership and he doesn't have that, he should have access to the say inventories at the other dealership. So that kind of coordination or a collaborative model can definitely help in optimizing the inventories further. Okay, coming to infrastructure, I think auto business being such a business that people would keep on doing the research on the websites, but finally they would like to come to the showroom along with their family and have a touch and feel of the vehicle, interact with the relationship manager before finally driving the vehicles out of the showroom. So the showroom infrastructure certainly would be required. Only thing is how we make the showrooms more productive, as the number of footfalls are reducing for a certain amount of sales. The showrooms can be made compact and more productive, and dealership manpower can be made more efficient using the technology. Today they have iPads, they have all the information at their fingertips, so a single dealer sales executive, he can cater to many more customers in a much more efficient way and provide that kind of an experience.
So I'll take last question from another viewer. She asks, these kind of slowdown comes very often. Why were we not able to identify or foresee it, that we are now into a big mess?
Oh, I think markets are markets and they behave that way. I think if one could foresee, the guy would become a billionaire overnight, forcing the stock exchange movements. Now in our country, the demand forecast is extremely difficult because we are still, evolving. Our economy is a developing economy. There are a number of households which do not have a car, while in case of developed countries, they know that how many vehicles will be under, attrition in a particular year, how many, say graduates would be coming out of the schools or out of the, colleges, how much demand would be there, how many replacement vehicles would be there. So that kind of models in a stabilized and a developed economy where market saturation has happened would be very easy to, formulate. While here, in a particular month, we'll have a demand for 150,000 vehicles at the retail level, and in another month, when it is an inauspicious period, there would be a demand for only 80,000 vehicles, and sometimes for no reason, there would be a fluctuation in the demand, what we call as sentiment. And it's very, difficult, though we try our best, working on the various forecasting models in collaboration with our dealers, but, economies behave in a certain pattern which are not always possible to forecast. We had 5 excellent years of double-digit growth, and this phase would be a temporary phase. In the long run, the auto industry is going to grow, and its double-digit growth is in place. It's only a matter of time when that trigger again happens, maybe 3 quarters down the line or 2 quarters down the line. But certainly there is a big demand considering the highly underserved passenger vehicle industry in our country.
So that's all for this Facebook Live. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much for watching 80 Auto FV Live.